As Witcher fans eagerly await the next game in the series, our excitement is off the charts. CD Projekt Red is officially cooking up the next big Witcher game, and the hype is real. The previous games dished out tons of epic quests, cool characters, and dilemmas that had our brain in knots, leaving us hungry for more. While we're still in the dark about the new game's deeds, I've created a list of 7 expectations for the next Witcher game. So, without further ado, let's dive in. Modding fantasy titles on a PC platform is seriously one of the most fun and engaging parts of modern gaming. Games like Fallout 4, Fallout New Vegas, and Skyrim have not only shown how awesome modding can be, but have also built some super passionate modding communities. These communities have breathed fresh life into these games, showing what die-hard gamers can do when they're free to get creative and jazz up their favorite games. Now, when it comes to the Witcher games, they've had their fair share of mods, but there's definitely room for even cooler mod action. CD Projekt Red kinda went in the right direction with their big open world game Cyberpunk 2077, making it easier for folks to mod. This shows that the game devs get how modding can make the gaming experience way more exciting. It's like a sign of things to come for the next Witcher game. Mods give players a ton of awesome options. They can make the graphics and sound go through the roof, change how the game works, and even drop entirely new stories and worlds into the mix. The cool thing about modding is that it not only lets you get creative, but also keeps a game going strong for a long time. Even years later, a game with active modding can still grab players and stay interesting. If the next Witcher game goes all in on modding, it's not just paying respects to PC gaming's rad modding history, but it also making sure the game stays exciting and keeps changing for years. CD Projekt Red can tap into the wild creativity of their hardcore fans, and that means a way richer and longer lasting gaming adventure for everyone. Spicing up combat dynamics is a crucial thing for The Witcher 4 to jazz up the player experience. The key to this makeover is mixing up the kinds of enemies you face in the game. Each enemy should have their own unique strengths and weaknesses. Now in The Witcher 3 they tried this idea on paper, but in practice it often got a bit boring, especially when you are playing on easy mode. So many players ended up just mashing buttons in a somewhat robotic way, and that didn't really bring out the full potential of the fights. The solution to this is creating enemies that force you to use different strategies to beat them. This fancy approach adds a layer of tactical thinking, making you drop the idea of using the same moves for every fight. By giving enemies special traits and quirks, The Witcher 4 can make a situation where players not only want to, but have to pay super close attention to what's happening in each fight. This higher level of player involvement has the potential to make fights more exciting and take The Witcher 4 to a whole new level of immersive gaming. Signs are a big part of how Geralt deals with fights, and it's pretty safe to assume they'll make a comeback in the next game. Instead of being stuck with a set list, imagine a situation where you can pick from a whole bunch of magical abilities, like a buffet of mystical possibilities. In this new world, it's up to us to be the bosses of our magical journeys. We get to cherry pick the spells that match how we like to play. Focus on the ones that get us excited and crank them up to become the wizard or witch. This way of doing things doesn't just make the game more complex and personalized, but it also gives each player their own special flair. It's the kind of magic freedom that could totally change what it's like to be a Witcher. So, CD Projekt Red should give us more magic to work with and let us whip up our own magical adventure and thrills in The Witcher 4. The start of Cyberpunk 2077 will probably be remembered as one of the rockiest launches for a big budget game in recent times. But let's not forget that CD Projekt Red has a history, even if it's got its up and downs when it comes to game launches. Now, The Witcher 3 didn't have anywhere near the level of crazy that Cyberpunk 2077 had to deal with. But let's take a trip back to May 2015. Back then, The Witcher 3 had its fair share of problems. A game that crashed, had bugs, and all kinds of annoying stuff going on. It wasn't the perfect masterpiece we all love today. It took a bunch of big updates to make it work well and be stable. So here's what we are really hoping for. That The Witcher 4 is gonna start off way smoother. CD Projekt Red is making a big switch to Unreal Engine 5 for making the game. This change should mean they have a more flexible toolkit and easier way to make the game. Ideally, all these moves will add up to a game that starts off all polished and good and setting a new standard for how RPGs kick off. In the past, the Witcher series has mainly stuck to a pretty focused approach, especially when it comes to weapons. Swords were a big deal with the occasional crossbow cameo, but in The Witcher 4, opening up the options for the weapons could really shake up the gameplay. Imagine being able to use and get really good with a whole bunch of different weapons. This switch from the usual sword heavy setup not only makes things feel fresh, but also adds more layers to how fights go down. It lines up with what we talked about earlier, about making your own Witcher. Whether it's a solid sledgehammer, a fast and deadly dagger, or a massive great sword, the choice of weapons should be totally up to the player. That way, you can create a combat style that's all about what you like and how you like to fight. Having a bigger range of weapons to pick from could turn combat from something you just do into a personalized. It could make The Witcher 4 way more immersive and engaging for players. Combat system went through a big change in The Witcher 3. This change was really a breath of fresh air, especially when you look at how old-fashioned and predictable combat used to be in the earlier Witcher games. Now, in an age where we've got games like Dark Souls, Ghost of Tsushima, and Elden Ring with their awesome weapons and tricky combat systems, it's pretty clear that the combat in the next Witcher game has to set up its game. One big deal in The Witcher 3's combat was how it works so well in big open spaces, where battles could really shine. But when fights moved inside tight spaces, things often got a bit dull and there was room for improvement. What's really needed for the next Witcher game is a smoother combat system that takes the layout of the place into careful consideration. Being able to change your fighting tactics easily based on where you are, whether it's a big open area or a cramped room, is a good move. It makes sure that every fight isn't just good to look at, but also makes you think tactically, no matter where it happens. The next Witcher game is gonna totally level up its horse stuff, aiming to fix what didn't work before and make the good stuff even better. With all the fancy new tech and game smarts, players are in for a way cooler time riding horses. The horses are gonna move better, act more like real horses, and make you feel like you're tight with them. They might throw in stuff like grooming, bonding, and feeding to make you and your horse tighter, kinda like Red Dead Redemption 2. Plus, the controls are gonna be smoother, and you'll already feel like you're in sync with your horse, cruising through all sorts of places and getting tactical when things get hairy. They might make horses a big deal in the game, tying them into quests, exploring, and the whole story. With all the tech improvements and listening to what players want, the next Witcher game should give you a way better time riding horses. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more content like this, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel. Until next time.
Anyone home?